So they rented them the year for the next year when they were there, or no? Oh.
What? What do you mean? Good evening, everybody. Welcome to the Town of Waukesha Town Board meeting on April 27th, 2017, beginning at 6:30 p.m. I'd like to call the meeting to order and begin with the Pledge of Allegiance.
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Madam Clerk, could you call the roll?
Chairman Merrick,
Present.
Supervisor Fisher,
Here.
Supervisor Wolf,
Here.
Supervisor Radke,
Here.
Supervisor Dur.
Here.
And Madam Clerk, have we met the requirements of the opens meeting law?
Yes, we have.
And we can begin with citizens' comments. Going once. Oh, good evening. Absolutely. Anybody can.
Well, maybe we're a little confused. When you get to his agenda item, will he be allowed to address the board? It was my understanding that he wouldn't be addressing.
Certainly, if he's on the agenda, he can address the board. Okay. Anybody else? Going once? Going twice? Then we can move on to meeting minutes of April 13, 2017. Is there a motion?
I'll make a motion. We approve the minutes from April 13, 2017.
And a second.
I'll second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. On to reports. And we have with us John Kneppel from Baker Tilly from Virchow Kraus. Good evening.
Good evening. Thank you for having me this evening. Always a pleasure to come before the board and give a presentation of the results of the audit, the just completed audit of the 2016 financial statements. You should have received a couple of documents already, bound in blue. Those are the reports that were issued. And just this evening, the clerk passed out just a handout. I'll run highlights of this handout and then gladly answer any questions the board has relating to the financial statements or the audit in general. Excuse me. Starting out, the objective when you hire us as your auditor or any CPA firm is to express an opinion on your financial statements, which we have done. That opinion is contained in that document, one of those documents, which is entitled the financial statements. The opinion that we've expressed is an unmodified opinion on your financial statements. It means it's also commonly referred to as a clean opinion. Means that your financial statements are fairly presented in accordance with the accounting standards you have to follow in order to achieve that opinion. It's the highest level of assurance you can receive from a CPA regarding your financial statements. The other document, before we get into some of the numbers, is entitled Communication to Those Charged with Management and Governance, or just reverse, governance and management. It contains all of the required communications we, as under our professional standards, must make to you as the board relating to the findings that we have in really the non-financial findings relating to the procedures we performed in the course of the audit. It contains this document, similar to prior years, contains a couple of issues relating to internal control that we've identified. These issues really haven't changed over time. These issues, the internal control issues, really relate to staffing levels. Without increasing your staffing level, it's very difficult to get rid of or eliminate these types of internal control issues. So the board needs to assess whether the cost of hiring additional staff is worth the benefit of achieving those, eliminating those internal controls. But there really is a mitigating circumstance to that as well, and that is the board's awareness of that these things exist. They ask questions, they get answers to their questions, they receive monthly financial information so that you can see what's going on. So that's part of this document. There are other communications, recommendations, things for management to consider going forward as part of the audit. So all of that's wrapped into that one document. Just going into some financial highlights then quickly. The fund, there's a high-level summary of the funds that you have for the town operation. The main operating fund is your general fund, and for the year you had just shy of $2.6 million of revenues and other sources of revenue. The expenditures and other uses was $2.9 million. So it decreased your fund balance by $358,000. Now that decrease was the result of moving $560,000 out of your general fund into a capital project fund. You have a policy of moving surplus funds out of your general fund into the capital project fund to meet current and future capital needs of the town. And so that fund is the capital project fund that you see next to it, and that you'll see that increased by $525,000. So that's the majority of that $560,000 that was transferred over. The funds that you're carrying forward into the new year for both of those funds, $1.2 million for the general fund, and then $1.5 million for the capital. So you have a well-funded fund. You also have a well-funded general fund. So and surplus is needed to achieve working capital during the year, working cash flow purposes. And it's also a contingency fund for unanticipated expenditures that come up during the course of the year, and also to account for revenues that do not materialize, that you expected to materialize during the course of the year. So there is a purpose for having fund balance and carrying forward into future years. And then there's three other smaller funds with lesser amounts of activity that run through them during the course of the year. You'll see those there as well. Then if you'll flip the page, we do have of your budget, your general fund budget, actual results to the final adopted budget of the town. And you can see that in total, your revenues were $80,000 higher than your budget, primarily in a couple of areas, your regulation and compliance revenues, which is cable television fees that you receive, building permits. Those were the two main categories that you exceeded expectations from your budget. Public charges for services, your ambulance revenues were higher than anticipated. And that was offset a little bit by the other revenue category where you had budgeted reimbursements for engineering fees and legal fees for developers and that are coming to the town to do business. You asked for reimbursements of those costs. Well, the actual activity was just less than what you anticipated during the course of the year. So the revenues weren't as high as expected. But overall, $80,000 higher than expected for your total revenues. On the expenditure side, you were in total $129,000 under your budget, your appropriations. Under general government, there was a big savings in the municipal fund, building utilities. Maybe that was partly an allocation issue. We're allocating apartments now, but there was a savings there. Public works, snow plowing was way under budget for the year, and also conservation and development or engineering costs were lower than budgeted as well. So then the second last line there, the other finance, the transfer out, the $568,000, that primarily is that transfer from the general fund into the capital project fund for those surplus monies that you're putting away for capital needs. That's a quick and high-level summary of the financial activity for the year and really the results of our audit. We had full cooperation of town staff in the course of the audit that made the audit go very smoothly this year. We certainly want to acknowledge that. So gladly answer any questions that you have.
Any questions for Mr. Knipple? Supervisor Fisher?
Yes, sir.
One question. Thank you, Mr. Knepple, for joining us again tonight. I know your company, your firm, provides services to many communities and municipalities in southwest or southeastern Wisconsin. I don't know what your geographical range is, but I know it's many communities. Can you give us a sense, again, the town is free of any long-term debt or debt service costs and everything. Can you give us some kind of a sense of how common or uncommon that is amongst municipalities that you provide services for? Just a general sense.
Sure. I would say if you are speaking in terms of cities and villages, they have debt. They're for them to have no debt would be very uncommon. When you get into the township area or part of the local government, it isn't uncommon to have townships that have little or no debt. You are in an envious position. I mean, having no debt is you're a very conservative, fiscally conservative town, and you pay only when you have the funds in hand. So you're more as far as when you put the towns together by themselves, it's not, I'd say it's probably about 50-50 where the towns have debt and half the towns have debt and the other have little or no. If you lump yourself together with the cities and villages, then it's, you're in a very small percentage of local governments that have no debt.
Thank you.
I don't know if that's getting to the answer, but
Thank you.
I don't have any specific numbers to say what it is, but I know my experience is you are in a situation that is not that common, where you don't have debt. You're kind of an elite group.
Elite.
And your financial statements bear out a very healthy financial position for the town. So
Nobody had any questions about the drastic reduction in snowballing costs?
No, but
We already know why. You've done an
we have
excellent job.
an excellent liaison there. With regards to lower utility bills, Madam Clerk, are you still forcing your staff to work in the dark?
we've got LED lights this week, so we're in good shape.
I see. Any other questions for our auditor? Thank you. Appreciate you being here.
Thank you for your time. Have a wonderful evening.
Then we can move on to the fire department. Chief Buchholz.
In March, we had 35 ambulance requests, 7 vehicle accidents, 8 fire responses. Mutual aid was given 5 times. We received mutual aid 21 times. 13 of those times, however, were just the paramedic program between us and Vernon. 2 members that were in leave of absence resigned from the department, and we're at 36 active members, 1 secretary treasurer, a high school cadet, with the potential of a second high school cadet coming on here real soon. He came in for an interview and such. So. Fire inspections are continuing for the next 6-month period. And this weekend we'll be at Rose Glen School during their chicken barbecue for fire prevention.
Any questions for the chief? Thank you. Next up, DPW report, Director Jerry Noley, but Jerry's not here. Mike in his absence. Do you have anything to say? No.
Just what you see in your packet.
Clerk's report, Madam Clerk.
The spring well monitoring was done earlier in April, and we've received the report. It'll be combined with the historical data and placed on the website to review. Our next monitoring will be done in October. The spring newsletter will be out the first part of next week.
Any questions for the clerk? We can move on. 8, new business, discussion and possible action. A, request from Dr. Salm for extension on his noncompliance notice. And Dr. Salm, I assume that's you in the audience? Good evening.
Mr. Chairman, if I might, I'd like to excuse or recuse myself from this part of the agenda and sit in the audience.
Please. Thank you. Did you want to address the board first? That'd be great. Thank you.
Thank you for your time. I just wanted to give you an update on the status of the non-compliant notice. I've been working with the contractors as well as the building inspector, Mr. Martin Montoya, pretty regularly for the past few weeks. Basically, at this point, I know another permit has been pulled and approved. And, I think at this point, our next step is to try to schedule something with the inspectors to make sure that we can address the issue properly. Based on availability and trying to schedule around that, I've tried to move things along the best I could, but it's been a little bit slow. I originally asked for another 30 days. I don't think that's going to be enough based on scheduling. So if you're gracious enough, I think within 90 days, we should be able to schedule everything and have the work completed.
What are all of the issues that, what are the issues that you have fixed, or in the ones that you haven't, the ones that are going to take extra time?
There's a permit that I believe is being closed for a backflow valve. So that one has been, I believe, taken care of. There's some planning needed to, there's another piece of equipment, an amalgam separator. That's a little bit more of a gray area. So there's a little bit more planning that we're hoping to do with the plumbing inspector before we figure out how that could work. And I know there's some electrical issues. I can't speak too well on the details because I only understand that kind of stuff a little bit. But I know that the permit, which should have been pulled before, has been pulled. And now it's just a matter of, ideally, if possible, meeting with the inspector and making sure that the work's completed properly.
Questions for Mr. Slom?
So what is the actual extension you're asking for?
If possible, 90 days. And I hope to have it done much faster, again, if possible. So I've been annoying everyone regularly, but I guess I can only schedule things with their availability.
So it looks like there was an amalgam separator at one point and it was removed.
Correct.
Any idea why the plumber removed it?
I basically need to replace it with a different model. And then I was led to believe that the room may not be code compliant, before I knew for sure with the letter from the town. So basically it was removed for those reasons, for the most part, yeah.
And so like is a new amalgam separator an upgrade or new technology or something that's out that the old one was removed and
No, there was no amalgam separator when I purchased the practice. And so when we basically put it in, it was operating for a period of time. It was taken out recently. I believe there needs to be a permit to put it in. And again, from what I understand, I don't believe the room was code compliant. Now I know that because I got a letter from the town, so.
any questions?
Well, I guess, a little confused. I see this and then the next item under new business, I'm assuming is related.
Correct.
So you're asking for an extension, but if I'm following this right, it's saying that you're not going to be a tenant there anymore?
I don't know about that.
What's
Okay.
that? I missed that.
Basically, I was given an eviction notice.
So I would assume that means you won't be a tenant anymore.
That would
You
not
won't
be.
What, I'm sorry?
A tenant.
Oh, a tenant, thank you.
No, that'd be something that, if it comes to that point, I would need to get legal support and fight that.
So in my simple analysis, you're asking for 90 days to fix the things that are wrong with the property. It's owned by the next person on the agenda that's saying that you're being evicted. But so you're asking to fix something that you may not be a tenant for or have rights to the property. I guess I'm not following.
I think we've got to clarify. Just because there's been a notice filed doesn't mean that anybody, those are legal proceedings, so we can't say whether or not any of that's going to take place.
Okay. Well, I guess based on that information, I'll make a motion that we allow 90 days for the violations to be corrected.
Is there a second?
Yeah, I'll second it.
Discussion?
Also, oh, go ahead, Mike. Go ahead.
Is there a second or what?
Also, I'd like to, if we can add that he comes back monthly, upgraded progress report. If that's okay.
Sure. Supervisor Durr?
So when and by who was the work originally done?
The work was done, I believe, last April by Dairyland Energy.
And was it at that time?
I believe they pulled a permit for the backflow valve, but they did not pull a permit for the initial installation of the amalgam separator, and they did not pull an electrical permit.
So does a backflow valve permit come from the town? I've never
Yes.
heard of that. It does? Okay,
It's a plumbing permit.
okay.
So is Dairyland the electrical and the plumber?
They were going forward. They may be the electrical. I think I'm going to have to get a different plumber.
So either Dairyland did do the electrical work also?
They did, yes.
And they weren't aware that they needed to pull a permit?
Apparently not. We're not on good terms right now.
Got it. And what is it that needs to be corrected? Do you know? I know you're not an electrician.
You know, I know there was something related to the air compressor location, as far as accessibility. There are a couple more technical things that
So are we looking at a day's work, a week's work, a month's work?
I think the problem with timing, because it would be done already, gotten it done, is the room that this needs to be done in is very small. And so with the piece and how they fit, I think the logic, and again, Mr. Montoya has kind of been involved as well. The logic was, instead of attempting and not doing it, sufficiently, they wanted to have a meeting with both inspectors and map out exactly what needs to be done.
So have you received a price quote from any electricians
I
for the
have
work?
not. As of right now, I think most of the electrical work I would expect Dairyland to fix, because it's related to the work that they initially did. When it comes to the plumbing and the amalgam separator, I don't really know how it's, what the solution is at this point. I don't know what's involved, if there's going to need to be.
So even though you're not on good terms with Dairyland, you're trying to work it out with Dairyland?
Dairyland right now wants to resolve their electrical issues. I think right now they're kind of walking on the plumbing. And so I have another plumber, that's recently gotten involved, who's going to handle that for me.
And so Dairyland's a licensed plumber and a licensed electrician?
Correct.
Okay.
And everything from the start, I tried to do by the book. I know the amalgam separator was bought from Patterson Dental, which is a reputable dental supply company. They managed the project. They recommended Dairyland. I learned a lot about permits that I didn't know before, but that's unfortunately the scenario right now.
Have you seen the letter that your landlord sent to the town clerk? Or no?
I do not believe I have.
Okay. Because they seem to indicate that they attempted to make you aware of this some time ago.
There was notification that there were code violations.
Okay.
And so that information was presented to Patterson, and eventually to Dairyland. And I think there were some attempts to set up meetings that didn't come to fruition.
Okay, thank you. Here's where I'm at. We got work that should have never been done without a permit to begin with. He was made aware that it was not done properly. While we may be talking about more than a day's work, I don't think we're talking about more than a week's work. And I can't believe that you can't find somebody to do it in quicker than 120 days. The 30 days that have gone by so far, or approximately, and then another 90. I got a hard time believing that can't get done. That's where I'm at on this position.
And I don't know if this is of value. I have an email from the building inspector, kind of outlining some of your concerns. And I'd be happy to provide that to you.
Do we have that?
I just got this today.
Would that be okay if you supply it to the clerk so she can make a copy for all of us? Please. Thank you. What do you do?
So I guess question, so you're waiting to get together with the building inspector to decide what you've got to do with that room?
I think right now, we're waiting to first meet with the plumbing inspector. And then we wanted to meet with everybody. So before, Mr. Montoya recommended to the plumber that before we pull the plumbing permit, to maybe meet with the plumbing inspector and then pull it. But apparently he's not been available for some personal issues. And so that's where that stood. So the plan was meet with the plumbing inspector, pull the permit for the amalgam separator. They've already pulled the permit for the electrical. Meeting with both inspectors and any contractors involved to make sure that it's done properly. Because it's not, with the space that's in there, it's not as simple as, move this here, move it here. It would have been done already. It's such a tight spot that, what I've been led to believe by people that know more than me is that it would be wiser to have a plan before they attempt to fix it.
And is it going to be able to fit in that closet?
I don't know.
And if it doesn't, you're not going to be able to put it in there?
I don't know.
It's been the position of the board that we extend deadlines based on hardship.
Okay.
And I don't see a hardship. I could support a 30-day extension. I wouldn't want to drag it out to 3 months. Agreed.
I don't have an issue with 90 days. The idea is to get it fixed.
Agreed.
Getting a hold of plumbers and getting a hold of contractors is, I think we all know, is pretty difficult. It seems to be there's a little more to it, saying that there needs to be state approval and plans submitted to the Department of Safety and Professional Services Plumbing Division. I don't know how long that takes. And I don't know if they have to approve it and then send it back. But if all we're doing is saying, get this done in 30 days, and then he has to come back here in 30 days to do it again, I guess I don't quite know why. As long as it gets fixed in 90 days is the time frame that we're looking at, I don't have an issue with that.
We shouldn't be here in the first place.
But we are.
We got an electrician and a plumber running around in the town of Waukesha that doesn't realize they need permits. Find that hard to believe.
Further discussion? We've got a first and a second on the table. All in favor? Opposed?
Opposed.
Aye. I would make a secondary motion for a 30-day extension. Would there be a second?
I guess sometimes better than none. I'll second that.
Discussion. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Opposed.
Motion carries. So 30 days, I would get on the plumber, get on the electrician.
Okay.
All right,
All right,
thank
for
you.
your time.
Appreciate it. On to B, request from the Broad A Corporation owner Eileen of her non-compliant property.
Good evening.
Good evening.
We are asking for a 30-day extension because we have served them with an eviction notice and they will not be out of the office by the time the 30-day compliance on the letter from the town runs out. So we would like a 30-day extension so that we could evict him. And then once he leaves, all of the problems will go away.
Questions?
Yeah, so the property already has a 30-day extension. We just voted on that, right?
You
Yes.
voted on it for him, for his letter from the town, but not, we also received a letter from the town that we are not in compliance in the mechanical room.
For the same violations?
Correct.
Madam Clerk, are those independent? Are you aware if those are independent letters, independent
They were addressed to
violations?
each person individually.
It was, okay. Thank you.
Well, if that's the case, I don't have any issue in extending the same. So I would make a motion that we give them 30 days.
In a second.
I'll second it. Question?
Yes.
So then all the code violations will be removed because it will no longer be a dentist office?
Well,
Or,
it will not be his dental office. I mean, hopefully we'll get another tenant that will be a dentist, and whatever equipment they will put in, we'll pull the permits and put it in correctly.
so the equipment that's not compliant right now is his equipment that will leave when he leaves?
Correct.
Any other discussion? We've got a first and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Opposed?
Motion carries. Thank you. On to C, appointment made by the chairman for an alternate Board of Appeals member. I'd ask that CND be tabled for the moment to the date certain of the next town board meeting.
What is it, 5? Does anybody know offhand? 5:14? 11th?
I'll second your motion to table.
I didn't, you'd have to make the first motion.
Oh,
I asked for a motion.
Oh, you were asking for one.
I did.
May I then make the motion to table?
Absolutely.
I'll
Second.
make the motion to table.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. On to E, appointment made by the town board of a fire commission member per code 2-5-6 sub A for a 5-year term. Term ends April 30, 2022, currently held by Bob Stigler, and I'd like to reappoint fire commission member Bob Stigler. F, appointment made by the chairman of a plan commission member for a 3-year term. That's currently held by Ken Miller, and I'd like to reappoint Ken Miller. And on to G, confirmation of Bob Stigler as a plan commission member per code 2-5-3 sub B for a new 3-year term. The term ends April 30, 2020. Same is held by Bob Stigler. Is there a motion?
So moved.
In a second.
I'll second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. On to H, appointment made by the chairman of a plan commission member for a 1-year term. And I'm sorry, I screwed these up.
Yeah, what do we got? In E, you made an appointment for a 5-year term.
Yes.
And
that's
then
Stigler.
in F for a 3-year term.
Yes,
And then we just confirmed the 3-year term?
yes.
The appointment for the fire commission does not need to be.
Oh, that was the fire commission. Yes, I'm sorry. Thank you.
Okay.
Okay, thank you.
However, H, the 1-year term is Ken Miller, is it not? So I made a mistake and I have to go backwards to. No, I don't. H, appointment made by the chairman for a plan commission member for a 1-year term. That is Ken Miller. I'd like to reappoint him. And to I, confirmation of Ken Miller as a plan commission member per code 2-5-3 sub B for a 1-year term ending April 30, 2018. And that position is currently held by Ken Miller. Is there a motion?
I'll make a motion to confirm Ken Miller.
And a second.
I'll second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. On to J, appointment made by the chairman of Mike Borchert as weed commissioner per state statutes 66.0517 for a 1-year term. Term will end April 30, 2018. That's currently held by Matt Gans. However, Mr. Gans has moved out of the town. And so that required a new commission, and Mr. Borchardt's in the audience with us tonight. He's currently 1/3 of our audience.
Did he bring his resume? Did he bring his resume?
100% of the males in attendance, I might note.
That does not require confirmation. And we can move on to K, authority to go out for a bid for crack filling, slag work, and spot sealing. Is there a motion
I make a motion to put out the bids for crack filling, slag, and spot.
and a second?
I'll second.
Quick question, Mr. Chairman. Is this what we're going to be soliciting bids for will be basically the scope that we have previously discussed when we were setting up budgets and so forth?
Well, this is the work that comes out of the expense.
I understand.
Okay, so this isn't usually laid out on.
Okay, I guess ask another way, do we know what the scope of that is then, what roads we're contemplating?
Yes, it's in the bid.
Okay. Thank
But
you.
I reviewed it with Jerry.
Okay. Okay,
You want to go over it?
well, if it's not at hand, no, we can do that, but maybe the clerk could just maybe send that along to people so we can see what it is.
Thank you. Anything further? All in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. On to I, disposal of Department of Public Works Gradle Top Kick Truck number 6, the 1996 International Plow Truck number 10. Supervisor Dorr, would you care to address this?
First, I'll make a motion. Mr. Chairman, I'll make a motion to approve the DPW to dispose of the Gradall, the Top Kick, which is truck number 6 in our records, and the 1999 International Plow Truck, which is truck number 10 in our records.
In a second.
I'll second.
So this is kind of a bit of a plan that we have for the DPW this year. So I have some information that I put together for you that orientates back to a couple years ago when we had a full analysis of not just the DPW equipment, but other equipment. So the first vehicle that we're looking to dispose of is the 1997 International. Currently, it's got 95,000 miles on it. I didn't get the hours information. I apologize for that. It has an 11-foot plow on it. It has a wing. It has a 9-inch stainless steel salter that's relatively new that we'll remove prior to selling. And we're anticipating that this has a potential value of around $8,000 to $10,000. The second truck that we're looking to dispose of is the 1996 GMC Top Kick. It's got 50,000 miles on it, 57. That is the correct number, 57,000 miles on it. 11-foot plow. The issue with this vehicle is it has no wing. So that's the major downside of this vehicle. It has a 6-inch salter and has a potential value of $15,000 to $20,000. And then finally, the excavator on the last page is a 1985 Gradall, 4,600 hours on it. We looked around a little bit on the internet on this, and we think we could get somewhere between $10,000 and $15,000. Finally, on the back of the last page, this is just from the taken right from the presentation that we did, just to give you a kind of overview of where we were thinking this equipment was going to be replaced at that time. The reason that we're looking for disposal of this equipment now is we have $110,000 in our capital budget for the purchase of a new plow truck this year. The reality is that the $110,000 probably will not get us a new plow truck. So kind of the overall scheme is to dispose of these 2 trucks along with a Gradall that hasn't been fired since I've been on the town board, and seek that money back, probably around $30,000, and then combine that with the $110,000 in the capital budget. And then we would take that $140,000 or the $110 plus whatever we get for these vehicles, and seek 2 new trucks, 2 used trucks. That would put us in a position of having 4 plow trucks for the town, and all of them with wings, which is key. We generally shave about 2 or 3 hours off of going through a route with a wing truck versus not. So that's kind of the overall plan and why we want to dispose of this equipment. We would dispose of this before we would seek to replace, and then kind of reanalyze where we are from a monetary position there and move forward.
Thank you. Questions for Supervisor Dorr?
Questions?
One quick question either for you or for Ms. Nicholas. If we are successful in disposing of any or all of these pieces of equipment, would any of those sales proceeds then go directly into the capital
Yes.
fund?
Yes, they do.
Okay, thank you.
Are we looking at putting these on the normal auction site?
Right. Yep.
I think you touched on it. The last time that grade all was started or moved, any idea?
5 years or more. It starts, it runs. Jerry got it. So I mean, well, it's a benefit when you're looking to sell it.
Just went up.
Yeah.
Could we give one of these trucks to our new weed commissioner and make him plow as part of his duties?
Is that a motion?
If I'm gonna do that, I'll put them in a truck with a wing.
Anything further? Well, we've got a motion and a second. All in favor? Opposed? On to 9, authorization for payment of the bills in the amount of $93,023.48. Madam Clerk, is there a motion?
I move we pay that amount.
And a second.
I'll second.
And there is no Rupert Melky bill in this, correct?
Correct.
Madam Clerk, we have a roll call vote?
Chairman Merrick,
Aye.
Supervisor Durr,
Aye.
Supervisor Fisher,
Aye.
Supervisor Radke,
Aye.
Supervisor Wilt.
Aye.
Motion carries.
Chairman, could you give me that amount again, please?
Sure, $93,023.48.
Thank you.
And lastly, a motion for adjournment.
I'll make a motion, we adjourn.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. We are adjourned. Good evening.